Hello my friends, my name is Ira, I'm a self-taught artist and today I'm going to redesign Emari from the game Concord. I know I'm doing this for a few months, but I'm having fun taking you all on this journey to design better characters and I hope you're enjoying it too. As a little disclaimer, this is just for fun and for entertainment. It's the same thing. This is just for entertainment and education purposes, and I'm not saying these designs are the best ones out there. This is just my vision and my research done to make these characters more interesting. Now that's out of the way, let's start with Emari. In today's video, not only we are going to redesign Emari, but we are going to talk about a very important part of character design that a lot of people don't really think about because it's not that intuitive, and that is world building. And then you're going to say, Ira, what? How is world building part of character design? Well, my dear friends, it is because a good character is telling a story, regardless of what that story needs to be, as deep or as shallow that you want it to be. A good character design will tell a story or will have a feeling or emotion or will say something. That's the point of making characters in our stories, in our games. We want to say something through our characters. If you have a topic that you'll be interested in that I haven't touched upon already, feel free to tell me in the comments and I will see which character will fit that topic the best so I can explore it alongside you. Let's start with Emari. In today's analysis, we are going to have three main sections. We are going to talk about the animatic video she has, we are going to talk about the archive entry, and we are going to check out her hero abilities. Let's start with her archive entry. You can pause to read, but essentially, Emari is part of a Scrappers clan from the planet Scourge, a planet in the middle of the Tempest Zone. Her clan lives by scrapping high valuable broken pieces of ships and aircrafts. After the clan gets their loot, the remaining clans, nicknamed the Vultures, sell the remaining scrap. Therefore, the person who gets there first gets the best value out of the scraps. There's a second faction going after the scraps, and that is the guild, the main antagonist of the story, which melts the scrap to be used in their own production. This race, to be the first to the scrapping side, made the clan of scrappers come up with a role focused on solely being the first, and that is a armor runner. These people needed to be sturdy enough to carry heavy armor to protect them from falling debris, as well as agile and fast to allow them to be the first on the scene. Another important detail we get from the archive entry is that the scrapper's armor is inherited, given from generation to generation, and you had to grow into it literally. Emari trained a lot to fit the shoes of the armor, as well as to become the best armor runner for her clan. Her story ends with her presumably leaving her clan behind after a fallout regarding the dangers of the expanding Tempest, which is the galaxy's thundering storm. That is one way to tell your family this out, I guess. I don't dislike her story, but the ending is a little bit strange, so that is where I'm going to have a little bit of changes. I like the idea of the clans, I like the idea of the environment and the scrapping. I don't like the idea of a reason of fallout just because they couldn't agree on something. That's a little bit to swallow for a concept as strong as family is for a clan member. Otherwise, the story will stay pretty much the same. Now, going towards her animated video, we are introduced to Emari, Buzz, and Veil. There seems to be a classicism issue with these robots, which I could only assume they are with the guild, and they are stopping Emari from entering the building because it's a high-class establishment. Hell breaks loose when her friends don't allow her to be mocked, and then we have a moment at the end where she's defending the honor of her people, or her race if you want. We don't really see her fighting, but we see a feat of strength and her shield ability. This is a little bit of the I'm discriminated against so I'm angry kind of trope, which it's alright, it can be both good or bad, depends how it's written. It's simple enough right now to send the point across. There's a scene at the end where, to me, she seems a bit disconnected from her lore.
Please, I have a family.
So did I, once.
I don't know if from this she means they died and the archive entry is old and the fallout means a fight, or this sentence means she doesn't consider them family anymore. although she just protected their honor a moment ago.
My people aren't peasants. We have honor.
So here's a little bit of disconnect for me that I'm going to try to fix. Lastly, we are looking at her abilities, and I'm very sorry to say this, but Emari looks absolutely boring to play. Her abilities are focused around shielding herself or her allies, and I do like the idea of her weapon getting hotter with usage. It's not a new concept, but it's a good concept to have. But that's kinda it. She has a combat trait, a cure bonus, increasing healing received to the entire crew. She has a passive ability, incoming body damage is reduced, and just 2 abilities. One is a armor generator and one is a projectile shield, destructible barrier that blocks incoming projectiles. So basically all she does is shielding, and while that's okay, I wouldn't find her fun enough to play unless she has a very big... I'm not a developer myself, but I know that characters are supposed to be self-reliant. Even in games where teamwork is so important, they have to have abilities that help other characters, but as well as abilities that allow them to stand on their own ground, which I don't see really from Emari. I'm not going to change the entire kit of the character because I don't really have that much knowledge about it. The way I do it is just think what could be used from other games I'm playing and trying to implement that in a way that works for this character. And if I'm not mistaken, that's kinda similar to how other games make. It's like using placeholders until you actually go with this character and you make it unique. For Emari, the only thing I am certain I want to change about her kit is that the shield, I want the shield gun. The shield, in my opinion, is too holographic and too techy to fit her design, which, to me at least, it reads very non-techy, very do-it-yourself kind of thing. So instead of having her pull out a shield to protect her teammates, I want something similar to Hazard or to Rematra or even to Doomfist's block. So she's absolutely massive, so it's going to be believable that she can withstand so much damage. Another quick note here, I know I'm referencing Overwatch a lot, and a lot of you are going to say, why are you doing that? It's not even that good of a game. I don't really care about that. It's a subjective way of thinking in a way. My point is I'm using all the knowledge that I have access to through my lived experience, and I'm trying to make something compelling. If that experience is different than yours, then of course what you want is going to be different. That's the point of having multiple artists or multiple opinions or multiple concepts on a game or a character until you find the one that is fitting for the game and what the developers want the game to be. Anyway, a little bit of rambling aside, let's continue. Also, if you hear my mic going on and off, like sometimes good, sometimes bad, I don't know what's going on with it. It's out of my power, just I hope it sounds good. Okay, let's continue. And now we got to my own input. Emari has the right idea. They decided to explain her armor and the need for her to be absolutely massive, which is good, but they didn't commit to it further. The world building of your world needs to be present on the character, like 90% of the time. If we take Winston from Overwatch, we can deduce a few things. He's an animal, which is something unusual for the rooster, therefore that creates curiosity, how he got to be in this position. The classes in his design point to him being an intelligent and mannered being, which is further pushed by his ultimate ability, his enrage, making him ditch the glasses, making him ditch his human side. His ultimate ability is making him go absolutely ballistic monkey ape. So that's another part of the world building and his story being present in his character design. If we look at his attire, he has pretty obvious techy outfits and mechanisms, which makes it pretty easy to guess that he is a servant or a subject of a servant, and both of them will be actually true. Emari doesn't benefit from that treatment. Her armor doesn't look old enough to be generational heirloom. It doesn't really look scrapped at all, and that's also a reason why the treatment of the bad guys in the Animatic falls a little bit flat for me, because there's nothing about her to say she's a scrapper. She's big, yes, but that's also a bit of a given. She's a tank. We are supposed to see her as a tank. So that's not really a storytelling element, it's more of a gaming element that's supposed to be translated to us, the viewers. On top of that, she's too clean, both in the animatic and in the game. The concept art does a better job to show us a worn out armor, and it's also a very clear callback to Mobius designs, which we discussed in previous videos. So that is a good concept, but for mine, I'm going to try to go into the scrapper aesthetic even more and to push that part of her story as much as I can. That means leaning again into the Mad Max aesthetic as I did for Davies, but this time with a twist. I'm going to lean less into the cloth layering aesthetic of Mad Max and more into the Fallout Apocalypse style. Fun fact, there are a lot of punk aesthetics, and the one I'm going to use today, it's actually called Dieselpunk, and that's also going into different aesthetics. So if you want to go a bit on a rabbit hole, feel free to research these concepts, it's actually pretty fun. For her ultimate ability, which I discovered in the Darius video that it's missing, so from now on I'm going to make one for everybody. I called it the Scrapper's Claim. Emari plants her Scrapper's flag into the ground. Enemies directly under where the flag is placed are stunned for 1 second, while allies are getting a 2 seconds shield and a faster reload for the same duration. This is inspired by Bellona from Smite, as well as Emari's duty as a armor runner and the stomp she does in the animatic. Now to the drawing board. So there are a few things I researched for this design. First, the build that will fit her the best will be the build of a rugby or American football kind of build that promotes endurance and speed, both of them being very important to her story. For her pose, I wanted something more confident and less why are we here just to suffer. And everything you've seen here is done behind the camera, but I used only Liquify and a bit of the Transform tool. And look into my 2D eyes and tell me this is not already a improvement, just by changing the pose. And of course I changed a little bit the shapes. I changed the shoulder blades. I made them bigger and less round, because I understand the point of her shape design is to be approachable at the same time as sturdy, but this felt a little bit wonky, so I went more into the sturdy and less into the approachable. The approachable part is still there, the shapes are still pretty much oval, but it's less in your face that she's approachable and it's more that she's sturdy and protected. I changed the shape of the helmet as well, and I made the weapon absolutely huge because it just felt right to do so. We operate on vibes. As we discussed in previous videos, I'm going to also add onto their names, and for her I'm going to keep Emari, but I made a list of the Scrapper clans, so I actually have a surname for her as well. I made the Scrapper clans diverse and different from each other in a way that in my head will create a cool narrative for her, let's say, chapter if we were to see her story. And from now on she becomes Scrapper Emari from the Ironmore clan. For her story, I changed a bit her final resolve. She didn't leave her clan and her Scrapper duty out of a fallout with her family, but as a desperate attempt to find a better life for her people. She went out in the world hoping to find that one thing to prove to her clan and to all the Scrappers on her planet that their life is in danger, and that's how she became a free gunner. For her armor, the idea is simple and I hope I can pull it off. I'll combine the look of an armored warrior, ease it at the joints so it doesn't make it hard for her to run. I'm putting the most focus on her shoulder blades and on her arm covers, making them the biggest parts of her armor and the parts that I'm most excited about and also the most scared about, because there's a art of making chaos. I can't just put random bits together and call it a day. I have to make it feel reasonable and usable, but I'm going to have the pieced together armor. I want to keep the American football kind of aesthetic of the armor in the idea that they found it and it's so old, of a civilization so lost in a way that they just kept it as a relic. Afterwards I started to work on a portrait to see her facial structure, and for that I'm using the official concept art from ArtStation. I am basically tracing it in order to capture her specific facial structure and facial features, and afterwards I'm just going in and making the little changes that I think are needed. For example, I'm adding a lot more piercings because I thought that gives her personality and I liked it. I also gave her scars because what kind of frontliner is that without scars? It really shows us that they have experience with whatever they are doing, and that's what storytelling in character design is. We want all these details to be present in order for the person who's looking at the character to be like, oh, I understand what this character is about. I was pretty happy with the way this came out. I just realized her nose is kinda wonky, but anyway. I went back in and I tried to replicate the face underneath while keeping the outside. The helmet, I wanted to close it up for a few reasons, because when, in my head, if I'm going on a trash site of a fallen airship or spaceship or whatever, there's going to be a lot of debris and there's going to be a lot of maybe toxic stuff in the air, so I would assume I want to be protected against that, right? So I covered her mouth with something that's, in my head, air purifying that allows her to breathe. And I don't really like the shape of the helmet, but the idea is there. And then I continued to add elements all around to make it look more armory. I added details on the shoulder pads, I added details on the arms. I want the arms to be separate, and I added a lot of spiky stuff to allure to the area of, more gritty, dangerous things. Then I started to work on the torso, and this is where things started to happen. I leaned a bit too much into the armor aesthetic, and unfortunately I did not like this. I continued to add elements, I struggled with the pants, I started to not like the design as a whole. It felt very nighty and not at all the worn out aesthetic I wanted for this character, and yeah, I failed. Or did I? It's fine if the first iteration of your design is not going to be exactly the way you want. That doesn't mean I failed, it just meant this approach was not the correct one. I decided to take a break and look at it the next day and see if I still hate it. And I did. I actually still didn't like it, and I decided to do the best thing there is, and that is to scrap it. The point of world building in character design is that it's not easy to have a character have all the details you need to tell a story. That's why in all the concept art you find online, you will find not one, not two, maybe 5 iterations of the same character. It's the same principle I talk about in the video with Do. That doesn't mean we fail, it just means there is another approach this character needs. That's fine. The thing is, when you start from zero, it doesn't have to be aimless. Because I tried something and I didn't like it. So what was that I didn't like? Well, first of all, I disliked the armor a lot. I feel like it didn't capture the vibe of the world that I wanted it to capture. So I need to make it even more separated and cut off and broken. I wanted her to feel powerful. The biggest change I'm going to make is give her a belt similar to the strongman we see in real life, and that is because this belt for strongmen is meant to help with their core strength in order for them to lift as much as they can. And I realized she's supposed to lift a lot, right? She's supposed to go there on the crashing site. She's supposed to find the best scrap to scrap and to be fast at it too. Therefore, I thought the addition of the belt not only is going to help with her design, but it's also going to help with the storytelling of the design. Unlike Do, where I had no direction, so I only explored like 5 different approaches, here I had a direction, I had a vision. What I didn't have is correct preparation for it. I just went in and I didn't pull it off, and that happens, that's fine. I'm going to lean more into the concept art of Emari. I kept the American football aesthetic and I wanted to lean even heavier in it. And as a little Easter egg, I discovered there's a American football team called Reinhardt Eagles. And I thought that's really cool because Reinhardt from the game Overwatch has an American football skin, and yep, that's a little Easter egg that I think it's really cool. I tried to put that on her chest. I'm actually going to cover later, and I don't mind that. You're going to say, why even put it there if you're going to cover it? Well, it's still the idea, it's there, and maybe my design is not the best for showing it, but somebody else is going to work with it and going to maybe lean more into this idea and have her even more into the aesthetic of the American football. For the shoulder pads, what I tried with it this time is to make it feel like it has been repaired multiple times before and not just once and done. I really wanted this armor to feel old but still sturdy. I made the Iron Mouse symbol on her chest as if it was painted there, and I gave her the Scrappers flag. Now in her initial design, I noticed they have her wearing a backpack. And while I can see why, I don't really get from her story that she's there to scrap. She's there just to claim. So for me, I took out the backpack in order to give her speed, but I did give her this massive flag, which I think also helps with her silhouette. I gave her the flap because I don't know, I really wanted this flap for some reason. I tried it the previous design, it didn't work. Here I think it works better. I connected it better and I also made it go upwards as if she's wearing normal clothes underneath, and that was the storytelling I wanted to say for her, because while she is the best armor runner of the Iron Moors, she is still just a scrapper. She's not super the chosen one, stuff like that. So I wanted to still make her feel like a living person beyond her role as a armor runner. And then I ended up just fixing a bit of the contrast. I stopped the video here because it was already getting way too long and I think you're already tired of me speaking, but I finished it behind the camera. I added all the grittiness and the rust and the dirt, and I think it looks pretty cool. I'm not really sure what kind of world this design implies she's living in, because initially I went in thinking she's in a very extreme and dry and heavily on the old structures, but now I kind of feel like she has some nature in her world, and the more I think about it, the more I think it's fitting, because yes, they are selling scraps in order to make money. What do they do with that money? Trade supplies, trade crops, trade things like that. With this new design, unintentionally so, I made the world feel richer, because now you can think her clan is having crops or animals, or it's much more in tune and lives in tune with the nature all around. Even if it's not just a luscious forest, they are preserving whatever nature there is left in order to survive. And the scraps are much more important right now for them to be first at, because they can't overuse their resources. They need external help and external trades to sustain that. I think that's cool, actually. This design found me. I don't think it's my best design. I'm not sure why, but what do you think? It was a journey, it was fun to do. It was a learning moment for me too. Next character is going to be Heimar, and I am trying to be a bit more present here on YouTube because I love doing this. It's just I have so much things to do and I don't always have time to record, but I am going to continue this, and I will see you next time with Heimar. Thank you for watching, thank you for staying around. I hope this was fun and helpful, and let me know what you think about Emari in the comments. See you next time, bye bye!